Welcome to our deep dive on grief-induced anxiety.
Okay.
Today, we're going to go beyond grief is hard and really explore how your brain and body react to loss.
Right.
And we're using the research you provided,
Okay.
the emotional and physical impact of grief-induced anxiety, understanding the brain's role and the body's response.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, this stuff is fascinating.
It is.
You know how people say that grief can feel like a heart attack?
Mm-hmm.
Turns out there's a real medical basis for that.
There is.
Wild.
Yeah, it's called broken heart syndrome.
Wow.
And it's a prime example of how grief isn't just in your head.
Okay.
It triggers a whole cascade of physical reactions.
Okay, so let's start with the brain.
Sure.
We know grief is emotionally painful,
Mm-hmm.
but why does it feel like our brain is short-circuiting?
Well, it's because your brain, specifically a part called the amygdala,
Okay.
interprets loss as a threat.
Really?
Yeah. Imagine like your brain throwing a tantrum because you're
Oh.
sad. It essentially can't tell the difference between heartbreak and a hungry predator.
Wow.
So it triggers that primal fight or flight response.
Wait, so my body thinks I need to fight HT grief?
Yeah.
What does that even look like?
Well, it looks like a surge of adrenaline and cortisol.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the stress hormones that are meant to like prep you for action.
Okay.
But with grief, there's nothing to fight or flee from.
Right.
So all that energy gets stuck, turning into anxiety.
So it's like my brain is revving the engine, but I'm stuck in park.
Exactly.
No wonder it feels so awful.
Yeah. And to make matters worse, prolonged grief
Oh,
affects other parts of your brain,
okay.
like the prefrontal cortex,
Uh-huh.
which is responsible for decision making,
Got it.
and the hippocampus, which deals with memory.
Right.
That's why like focusing and thinking clearly can be so difficult when you're grieving.
That explains a lot.
Yeah.
It's like grief is hijacking my brain's control panel,
Yeah.
making it hard to do even basic things. And that feeling of being overwhelmed isn't just mental,
No,
it's physical too.
it's both.
Think about the last time you felt that gut-wrenching sadness.
Mm.
Maybe your heart raced,
Yeah.
your stomach churned.
Uh-huh.
That's your body going on high alert.
Right.
It doesn't stop there.
Nope.
Grief messes with your breath, making you feel like you can't get enough air.
Mm-hmm.
Your muscles tense up, you can't sleep.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy.
Yeah. It's amazing how something that starts as emotional pain
Totally.
ends up impacting our whole body.
Right.
It's like grief is launching a full-on physiological attack.
So you've got the racing heart, the tense muscles.
Mhm.
What else is happening in this internal war zone?
Well, your digestive system takes a hit too.
Oh.
Those stress hormones disrupt your digestion,
Oh.
leading to nausea.
Okay.
Appetite changes, even that awful pit in your stomach feeling.
Yeah, I've definitely been there.
Yeah.
And let's not forget about sleep, or the lack thereof. I remember tossing and turning for weeks, then crashing for days at a time.
Wow.
It was like my sleep cycle was on a permanent roller coaster.
That's your brain trying to cope.
Okay.
Sometimes it overreacts, leading to insomnia, while other times it tries to shut down completely, resulting in excessive sleep.
Wow.
And to top it off, all this stress takes a toll on your immune system,
Oh, no.
making you more susceptible to getting sick.
So if you find yourself catching every bug going around, it's not
Yeah.
just bad luck.
Nope.
It's grief weakening your defenses.
Exactly.
Man, grief really does a number on us.
Yeah, it does. Okay, well, we'll dig more into this after the break.
Sounds good.
So we've established that grief basically throws a grenade into our system,
Right.
but doesn't everyone experience this emotional shrapnel differently?
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, some people seem to navigate loss with more resilience.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that?
That's a great point. And it's true that grief is darkly personal.
Okay.
There's no set timeline or universal reaction.
A bunch of things influence how we grieve,
Like what?
like our personality,
Okay.
our support system,
Mm-hmm.
cultural background,
I got it.
and even past experiences with loss.
So some folks have a higher tolerance for this emotional roller coaster.
Yeah.
Like their bounce back game is strong.
Exactly. Some individuals have a more robust stress response system,
Okay.
meaning those hormone surges don't throw them off as much.
Interesting.
But resilience isn't just inborn.
Oh,
It's something you can build over time with the right tools and support.
that's good news.
It is.
So even if someone's really struggling initially,
Right.
they can still learn to cope better over time.
That's exactly.
It's not a life sentence of intense grief.
Absolutely not.
Mm-hmm.
It's about finding what works for you and being patient with the process.
Okay.
There's no right or wrong way to grieve, and it's definitely not a race.
That's reassuring.
Yeah,
Speaking of finding what works in the last part, we were starting to talk about healthy lifestyle choices as a coping mechanism.
right. And this one is often overlooked, but it's crucial.
Okay.
When you're grieving, it's easy to neglect basic self-care.
Yeah.
But taking care of your physical needs actually helps your body manage stress better.
So things like eating nutritious food, getting enough sleep, and
Yeah.
staying hydrated.
Exactly.
It's like giving your body the best chance to fight back against the grief bomb.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Those might seem like small things,
Yeah.
but they make a big difference in how your body copes with the emotional and physical strain of grief.
Okay.
And I want to add another one to this category,
Oh, yeah.
limiting alcohol and caffeine.
Oh, interesting. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, both alcohol and caffeine can worsen anxiety.
Uh-huh.
Alcohol might seem like a quick fix to numb the pain,
Right.
but it disrupts your sleep and can ultimately increase anxiety in the long run.
It's like hitting the snooze button on your grief.
Exactly.
You might get temporary relief,
Yeah.
but you're not actually dealing with the alarm going off.
You got it. It's about addressing the root of the problem, not just masking the symptoms.
So we've talked about mindfulness techniques, therapy, exercise, leaning on your support network,
Yeah.
and taking care of your physical needs.
Right.
What else should we keep in mind as we manage this grief-induced anxiety?
Well, remember, these strategies work best in combination.
Okay.
It's not about picking one magic solution,
Right.
but creating a multi-pronged approach.
Okay.
Think of it like building a toolkit for those difficult moments.
So meditation might be great for calming that alarm center in the brain, but it's even more effective when combined with exercise,
Yes.
good sleep,
Yeah.
and connecting with friends.
Exactly. Each strategy complements the others, creating a synergy that helps you navigate the complexity of grief.
Makes sense. So it's not just about surviving grief,
Right.
but equipping ourselves to handle it in a way that minimizes the damage.
Exactly. And remember, these tools are always there for you.
Okay.
Grief isn't linear. It comes in waves.
Right.
There will be times when the anxiety feels more intense.
Yeah.
And
It's okay. So it's normal to have good days and bad days.
Yeah.
No need to pressure myself to get over it on some arbitrary timeline.
Absolutely. You're allowed to feel the full spectrum of emotions during grief.
Okay.
Don't judge yourself for having a tough day. That's where self-compassion comes in.
Right.
Be kind to yourself. Allow yourself to feel what you feel and reach out for support when you need it.
That's such important advice.
Yeah.
It's so easy to beat ourselves up when we're already down.
It is, but remember, grief is a natural human response to loss. It's not a sign of weakness, and there's no shame in feeling it.
Welcome back to our deep dive into grief-induced anxiety.
Okay.
We've covered a lot of ground from the science behind those intense reactions to strategies for taking care of ourselves. But now I'm kind of curious about tackling those anxious thoughts head on.
Okay.
What are some practical techniques for dealing with, like, the mental side of grief?
One of the most effective tools is reframing negative thoughts.
Okay.
It's like, those thoughts are bullies,
Yeah.
and we need to learn how to stand up to them.
I'm intrigued. How do we actually do that?
It starts with recognizing those unhelpful thought patterns
Right.
that often pop up with grief and anxiety.
Okay.
Things like, I should have done more, or if only I had been there.
Yeah.
These thoughts are natural, but they can also trap us in a cycle of guilt and regret.
Oh, I know those thoughts all too well.
Mhm.
It's like they take root in your brain and just keep replaying on a loop.
Exactly.
So how do we reframe them?
It's about asking yourself some tough but important questions.
Okay.
First, is this thought helpful?
Okay.
Is it actually doing anything positive for me?
Right.
And second, is it even true?
Mm.
Often those guilt-ridden thoughts are based on assumptions or unrealistic expectations we put on ourselves.
So it's like fact-checking those negative thoughts,
Yeah.
seeing if they hold up under scrutiny.
Exactly.
And then what? How do we replace them with something healthier?
It's about actively choosing a more balanced and compassionate perspective.
Okay.
Instead of, I should have done more. You might say, I did the best I could under incredibly difficult circumstances.
It's more than permission. It's about recognizing that you did your best in an impossible situation.
Exactly.
Grief messes with our thinking, so we need to actively fight back against those self-critical thoughts.
Right.
What other techniques can help us wrestle those thoughts to the ground?
Another powerful tool is grounding techniques.
Okay.
Ever feel like your grief is sucking you into a black hole of worry?
Oh, yeah.
Grounding techniques help pull you back to reality by anchoring you to the present moment.
It's like a lifeline when you're drowning in what-ifs and worst-case scenarios.
Exactly.
What are some examples of grounding techniques?
One simple one is the 5-4-3-2-1 method.
Okay.
Name 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste.
Wow.
It forces you to focus on your immediate surroundings, breaking free from that spiral of anxious thoughts.
I love that. It's so simple yet so effective.
Yeah.
Are there other grounding techniques you recommend?
Deep breathing is another fantastic one.
Oh,
We
wow.
talked about it before, but it's worth repeating.
Okay.
When anxiety hits, our breathing becomes shallow and rapid.
Mm-hmm.
By consciously slowing down and breathing deeply from your diaphragm,
Okay.
you send a signal to your brain that you're safe, calming your nervous system.
It's amazing how such a basic bodily function can have such a profound impact on our mental state.
It really is.
Like we have this built-in anxiety reliever we can access anytime, anywhere.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the power of self-care beyond managing those acute moments of anxiety.
Okay.
It's also about doing things that bring you joy and nourish your soul, even when it feels hard.
So things like hobbies, spending time in nature, listening to music, reconnecting with things that make you feel alive.
Exactly. It's about finding those activities that help you feel grounded, connected, and whole.
Okay.
Grief can make it hard to find pleasure in things.
Yeah.
But it's so important to make an effort to engage with the world in ways that feel meaningful to you.
I love that reminder. It's so easy to get lost in the sadness and forget that there's still beauty and joy to be found in life.
Right.
Like, grief doesn't have to completely extinguish the light within us.
Absolutely. And even if you don't feel like it at first, push yourself to do those things that used to bring you joy.
Okay.
Over time, those sparks of happiness will start to return, and you'll begin to rebuild your life around those things that matter most to you.
I find that incredibly helpful. It's a reminder that even though grief can be incredibly challenging, it doesn't have to define us.
Mm-hmm.
We can still find healing meaning and even joy in the midst of loss.
Absolutely.
This has been such an insightful deep dive.
It has.
I feel like we've explored not only the dark side of grief, but also those glimmers of hope and resilience.
Well said. Remember, you're not alone in this journey.
Mm-hmm.
Reach out to your support network. Seek professional help if you need it.
Right.
And most importantly, be kind to yourself every step of the way.
Grief is a process, not a destination. It takes time, patience, and a whole lot of self-compassion.
Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us today. This has been truly eye-opening. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into grief-induced anxiety. We hope this conversation has provided some comfort, guidance, and a sense of hope as you navigate your own unique grief journeys.